Okay, we want to kind of talk about anatomy, an anatomy lesson here. We want to talk about the structure of your stomach before surgery, the type of surgery that we're doing, and we want to talk particularly about your valves in the stomach. I want to talk about normal digestion and how it works and what we do, and also I want to bring up, apropos the question, the people who talk about the biliopancreatic diversion surgery. The surgery that's called the biliopancreatic diversion is a type of surgery, and surgeons and patients who are very tense about one of the stomach's valves. Those surgeons and patients are very tense about the valve at the bottom of the stomach called the pylorus. And they say, and they'll sometimes call my patients or write things on mailing lists going, ooh, if you have a surgery that gets rid of the pylorus, the bottom valve of the stomach, terrible things will happen. And you really need that valve. So I want to come back to talk about that, about the valves, about the way things work, and about your MGB, and give you some background on that, if that's okay. First of all, let's go through the normal digestive process and look at the, pretty miraculous way that you and I eat and digest and absorb our foods, because it's really pretty cool. So we eat, our mouth, the teeth, the saliva and enzymes in your mouth get started on the digestion by breaking up the big pieces, and then you swallow. Now, the esophagus is really the child of a lesser god. It doesn't do anything. All the esophagus does is, good morning, all the esophagus does is pass food from the throat to the stomach. And it does that because the gut is down here and the heart and lungs are up here. The heart and lungs are like senior management, and the gut is lesser, not such senior. So all the esophagus does is passes the potatoes, the pizza and stuff down to the stomach to get out of the executive suite and down to where the work happens down in the gut. So the esophagus is next in the digestive system, but the esophagus has not much to do, just pass by the heart and lungs and go down to the belly. Now once your food falls into the stomach, we're really going to turn on the digestive system. And to get into the stomach, there is a valve that opens to allow food in and to keep acid and food from refluxing back up. That valve is called the lower esophageal sphincter, and it's imaginatively named because it's at the bottom of the esophagus, and sphincter means valve. So it's the lower esophageal valve, and it opens to let food in, and it slams shut to close off the top of the stomach. Once food drops into the stomach, it can fill up a big expandable vat. So you can sit down for dinner at Thanksgiving, and you can have a salad and an appetizer and a piece of turkey and mashed potatoes and gravy, sweet potatoes with the marshmallows, some green beans, cranberry, and all the while your stomach is expanding. It acts as a reservoir. Finally you're full, a little pumpkin pie just to top it off, and then the valve slams shut, and then the wash cycle gets turned on. Your body and the bottom of the stomach has a muscular pump just about the size of your fist, and the stretchy part above that, and it starts pumping and digesting food. Squeeze, squeeze, squish, squash, squish, and it injects acid and digestive enzymes into that stomach pouch and that reservoir. And it's very powerful. If you drop a chicken leg into that, the stomach will turn that into kind of mush. If you actually cut up stomach and put it in stomach, it would dissolve itself, because it is a vat of acid with a powerful digestive pump. And the two valves are closed during this process. The valve at the top stays tightly closed, and then the bottom valve, once you've done a good amount of digestion, anywhere from 1 to 3 hours, you start to open this valve and let little bits of the partially digested stuff out. And that does a tremendous benefit to you in digesting and absorbing fat and calories. Now, the next step in the gut is also really important. You and I are water. We're water-based creatures. And sometimes we would like to digest and absorb fat, and oil and water, fat and water don't mix. So right beyond the stomach is another miraculous part of our digestive system, and that is the pancreas and the gallbladder bile, which are injected into that kind of slurry of partially digested food, which helps us digest and absorb fat because it's a detergent. And the way to think about a detergent is, you know, the grease that appears on the top of the sink when you wash a plate or a pot that has a lot of grease in it, and then you put the dishwashing soap on, and then those grease spots dissolve. That is what we are fitted with right beyond the stomach, below the first and second valves of the stomach. That's a brief overview of digestion, and it's only the beginnings of what the miracle is that goes on inside of us, and it's pretty amazing. Unfortunately, in some of our patients, that miracle is working too well. That is, you eat and digest and absorb too much. Okay, so now what do? With the MGB, we cut a new stomach out of the inside edge of the old stomach, and we bypass the lower valve. That's called the pylorus. So now when food falls down through the esophagus, it drops into the stomach. The stomach has been modified, and it is now the equivalent of the esophagus. Instead of being a reservoir and a vat for digesting, it's converted into just a transit tube like the esophagus. And it doesn't have the muscular pump. It doesn't have much of the enzymes, and it doesn't have the valve on the bottom to keep the food in there. So that means that digestion and absorption of fat and calories is interfered with. Yay! That's what we want. That's what we want. So when food goes down, you swallow it, it drops through the esophagus. That's what swallowing does. Then it drops into the stomach, and then it drops from the stomach tube straight into the bowel. It bypasses the stomach. It bypasses the acid in the stomach. It bypasses the digestive enzymes in the stomach, and it bypasses that first part of the bowel where the bile and the pancreatic enzymes inject to digest fat, and therefore fat and calorie digestion is interfered with. Good. Good. Now, some doctors and some patients are tense about the loss of the bottom valve. They'll go, yikes, without the bottom valve, all kinds of heck will be cut loose. And what we say is, no. And in fact, you can talk to 5,500 patients of mine who have no bottom valve, and they do fine. In fact, the lack of the bottom valve means that greasy, awful junk food doesn't work very well in the new system. So prior to surgery, a Snickers bar, an RC Cola, a piece of cake, pizza, and fried chicken might all go down into that vat of stomach and work okay. Post-op, after an MGB? No. No? No. Because when it drops into the small bowel is union. The small bowel goes, wait a minute. This is supposed to have been digested in the stomach and in the duodenum before it gets to me, and if you put raw, greasy food into the small intestine, it's not happy. And it blocks you intentionally from eating an awful, greasy, terrible meal. Now, can the small bowel take a little bit of pizza? Yes. Can it have a cookie? Yeah. Can it have a bag of cookies? And no. Can it have a whole pizza? No. Can I get an amen to that? We're not having a whole pizza. So what we've done by converting the stomach to an extension of the esophagus and by bypassing the upper duodenum is we've interfered with the digestion and absorption of fat and calories. Good. You're still allowed to eat some junk food as a treat, but it's difficult to eat that as a regular, major part of your diet. So instead, how does an apple go down? Fine, right? How does greasy, sloppy Joe, heavy, greasy hamburger? Right. Okay. And what would we like in the perfect world? If you and I were inventing a perfect operation, we would want one that allows good, healthy foods: a banana, an apple, a green salad, something like that, a bite of celery. We want that to be great. And then what do we want as far as a milkshake? What do we want as far as ice cream or cake or cookies? We want some of that as a treat, but a lot of that, and Dr. Rutledge and the MGB stand ready to punish you. Don't you do that. A bite of pizza, okay. A bite of cheesecake, okay. A whole cheesecake? No. So the valves are very important. They're part of this whole process. And you lose the lower valve, you keep the upper valve, and the upper valve is important to protect against reflux, and it's actually made a bit stronger by the MGB. And so that's kind of the story of the MGB and your digestive tract in summary. Does that come close to answering your questions?
Yes.
Okay, good.